All right, so Jonathan, thank you so much for joining this episode of Trailblazing Talks, man. Thanks, good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. A blessing to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And it's just a blessing to, have the opportunity to just wake up in general and see another day. So, yeah.
Listen, I totally feel you. And I mean, I always have to lead with my first question, which is like, how you doing during COVID, during this life of craziness? How are you?
I am doing great. It's a blessing. It was kind of rough at first. I want to say last year is rough, just transitioning into the pandemic and then also coming out of it. So things are happening more so for me now. Mm-hmm. But it was a little difficult at the end of it because I was just completing film school at the end of last year. Yeah. And so I kind of graduated in the pandemic and there's no jobs available or anything. Mm-hmm. So it was just in a weird space, but things are picking up for me now. My films are doing really good. It's just like my build up over the last couple of years. Everything's popping for me now, especially after last June with the protests and, the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. A lot of my more political driven films and proactive driven films are doing really good right now. So I'm blessed.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, thank you for all the links that you sent me because I was watching, I think I at least watched 6 of your films and man, wow. It is incredible. You are such an inspiration. I was sitting there like, man, I want to be a better filmmaker now. This guy is doing awesome work. I think it's really cool because you studied pre-law and then you went into film.
Yes.
How did that happen?
It's kind of in high school. I had, all my life I've been trying to be a creative. And it got to a point where I kind of got a little burnt out. There were some things with one of my teachers at the time that I felt like a lot of people were trying to hold things in front of you or against you to kind of you have to do this to attain this. And I just wanted to take a break. So I got really political my last year, my senior year in high school. And I took became a social studies major. And then I really got into law and I like to debate and, have conversations and stuff, especially, I went to a predominantly white high school where, it was a clear racial line between whites and blacks. And even when we discussed, I think it was during Hurricane Katrina, when the Kanye conversation of, George Bush doesn't care about black people and just how people didn't interpret that right. And they didn't even understand their own privilege in the classroom. So it just spearheaded me to be more of an activist, so to speak. So I wanted to go to law school, but still retain some of my entertainment. So I want to be an entertainment lawyer. So I wanted to be the best of both worlds. And it just happened that during my undergrad experience, I ended up working for media services, which is a media department on my campus of Northern Kentucky University. And there I learned, was trained on studio cameras, studio lighting, editing, how to set up a camera and everything. And because they had their own original programming at that time. So, we did live events and debates and graduations and all that jazz. So after that, I started getting to making my own content with one of my good friends and coworkers at the time. We started making our own music video remakes, little commercials, little spots. But one of my mentors at the time, and he was also my supervisor, told me to make a film. And I never thought I could make a film. I was like, wow, something that's more of my own original content with dialogue and stuff like that. I was really nervous. But I had a background in writing just from middle school. I've been writing short stories and putting my friends' names in there and stuff like that. So I dived into it, did some research, got some people to look over my script. And then I ended up making a horror feature called Slasher that I was able to put out after I graduated from undergrad. So the next 2 years, I kind of took my time editing and just scoring and mixing and just making sure everything was tip top. And then finally had a premiere for it and, did screenings for it. And that led me to LA in 2016. I started film school and the rest is history.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. I mean, I think it shows that you just never know what life has for you. And sometimes you just kind of got to go with it. And like I said, you're profound in your work. I think what I really appreciate about you, which a lot of filmmakers don't do, is that all of your work essentially is on YouTube. And there are a lot of filmmakers who are like, nah, catch my film at a film festival. It's exclusive. I think it's a really wonderful thing that people can see what you've done from start to finish and be like, man, this is Jonathan's trajectory. Look at where this guy is going to go next. And like I said, even for me, I started out in college, so I know what it means to like be running around with like 2 DSLRs and 2 tripods. Hey, let me grab my friends. I get it. And I think it's really, really inspirational. So I guess my question is, what made you choose to make your work so accessible?
You know, it's all about getting eyes on you. You know, one thing that we did touch on before I graduated film school is that what happens after festivals? And we really don't talk about that. So it's always been my goal as a content creator in general. I've always made my work accessible so people can see it. And then, you know, there's certain things that you can have that you charge and, you know, do other things with. So my work is accessible on multiple platforms. Most of my work is accessible on YouTube, but also, you know, I have a Vimeo page. I have things on Facebook. I have things on IG. So there's different levels of what you can see. Everything is not everywhere, but, you know, most of the stuff is centered on YouTube. But definitely Slasher is definitely available on Vimeo for rental and purchase as well. So, you know, my features, you'll probably have to, you know, there'll be a fee and stuff. But I think I'll have both options kind of open just depending on what people can do, you know, because we're just in times where everybody can't afford everything. And sometimes people just need to believe in you, or they need to feel like you're worth the investment. And so, you know, that's where that comes from. But the main thing is to just get any eyes on your work and see what happens with you.
Yeah, for sure. I like that a lot. I think more people should do that, because I think sometimes with filmmakers, when you only show like your best work, people believe that's what you came out the gate doing. It's like, no, wait, I had to work to get here. So I like that people get to see that progression for you. Something I want to say is you are not shy about these topics that you cover at all. And that was probably the most surprising thing to me about going through your links. I was like, man, this guy has covered everything from racial disparities to colorism in the Black community to abuse to suicide to self-love, like everything. When you are, because you are the writer, director, producer of your work, when you know you're about to dig into a topic that's deep, where do you start?
You know, I was trained to be authentic and presentation of ideas and story and everything. So a lot of things either have happened to me personally or have happened to someone close to me enough where I have authority or ownership to tell this story authentically. And so that's where that comes from, or just things that are felt within our community that need to be discussed, you know. Especially since the events of last year, I believe that it's an artist's responsibility to reflect the times. And as artists, we have to reflect what's going on in the world. So, you know, especially for Man Down, that definitely reflected, you know, the times. But I started making Man Down before last year happened. So, you know, it was just interesting. But we have had Trayvon Martin. We've had so many other people murdered that people tend to forget about over the last 10 years, you know. So when we get to a George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, that's just the pinnacle of, you know, the pandemic, because people had to stop and face it, and we couldn't just sit in that cycle anymore. But, you know, we're so used to, as Black people, the cycle of everything, and all of these are cycles, even domestic violence, suicide, all these are some type of cycles and things and trauma that we deal with. And I just want to tell raw, riveting, Black-centric stories that, you know, can help people, that can incite, give people a look into someone else's life. So even if you just empathize with them and you just approach people with a different spirit and a different energy, instead of being so self-centered and only seeing what's wrong, what's going on in your life, you know? So that's really where it comes from, just being authentic to you and telling your story.
You know, it's so funny to me because Black people were so deeply ingrained into everything, especially within this nation. But it's so interesting to me how so many people are like, they don't know anything about Black life. And so it takes works like yours, works like mine, works like other people's to let everybody know, like, hey, this is what we go through. Do you think there's going to be a real time where that changes, where we don't have to keep having to yell in people's faces like, this is our pain, this is our struggle, and this is our triumph?
You know, that's a great question. And it's so sad, the reality. I don't think we'll ever see the end of racism in our lifetime, unfortunately. I think it's just something that would really have to be stopped and eradicated, you know, being taught. Because racism is taught, you know. And this country was founded on systematic racism, white privilege, and oppression. So to all of a sudden just be like, hey, give up your privilege and be just like us. Like, people don't want to be equal. And, you know, we fight for equality so much, but other people don't want equality. But if someone is truly an ally who is not, you know, African-American or Black, like you can use your privilege to help change things. You can help change the hierarchy of the system that was created to enslave us and to oppress us, you know? And that's the only way true change is really going to happen. I think we'll see it. I'm not sure we will in our lifetime, but it doesn't mean it will never happen. But I just feel like to be in 2021 and still dealing with the same issues is really a bit sad and disappointing. And people have all access to any knowledge that's out there. We have the internet. We have technology is at its pinnacle, it's at its peak. Right. And people choose to be ignorant. They choose to just be distracted by, you know, one little, you know, little small things, just attention of social media, just to be seen, but not using their platform to change things, to change the narrative, to, you know, be responsible with their platform. And that's the aim that I use with film, because while I use film as entertainment and as therapy for me, I also use my platform to speak on things to help people, you know, and I feel like, you know, God would want me to do that. So that's where I am with that. And I hope things do change over time, or I can change the perspective with my journey. But, you know, we'll see.
Yeah, I definitely hear you. I guess that brings me to my question of, because you tackle things that most people have a hard time hearing about or watching, what is it like when you have conversations with your team saying, here's what I'm thinking about doing next?
Like from story point of view, or like just going into production?
Story point of view.
Well, right now, mostly my stories, it's just, I write most of everything unless I'm collaborating on a project or writing something for somebody else. But it's just using my resources in the sense of people like artists that I've done close with, or people that I can rely on who understand my story, my authentic voice. So therefore I can show them my script, get their feedback, get notes on what works, what doesn't work, and you know, what the real intent or the message is of the story before, you know, going into production. That's one way to look at it. It's kind of like using your village. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So yeah. So I use my village, so to speak, to, you know, just make sure I hunker down on whatever I'm trying to tell. And then, you know, when it comes to production, just building the right team that's right for that production and understands, you know, what you're trying to do. And one thing that I always emphasize when I go into production is making sure my gaffer and DP understand how to like Black people.
Amen.
Making sure that that care is there, because I feel like people are so used to not having diverse casts of color or anything like that. So they tend to light for the lighter skin tone. And if you have two people on screen together, there are two different skin tones, that's a big challenge. And that takes someone who has done the research, who's done the work to understand what that is. And they also teach you how to light at film school for different skin tones as well. So, you know, it's just doing the work and doing the research on both ends, from me finding my teams, you know, and building my village, to also making sure my village does their research so they understand what I want to tell and how I want to execute it.
That's awesome. I love that you call it a village. Oh, that's great.
Yes.
And even diving in a little bit further, because the one film that stuck out to me when I had this question was Beauty Mark. I don't want to give like any of your work away because I just want people to go see it. But Beauty Mark does cover this topic of abuse. And man, my question was, for those more intense scenes with the actors, when you know you're about to have to film this where someone gets hurt or there's an uncomfortable situation, how do you ease the actors into something like that and make them feel as comfortable as possible?
That's an amazing question. Well, of course, with Beauty Mark and most of my films, the audition process is so important. Before you even get there, you want to make sure everyone is invested and fits, you know, in the work. And so my leads did an amazing job. They put the work in. Their dynamic and their chemistry was so real, and that was so important to it. And they were so committed to it. So it's a lot of conversations about, you know, your life, your backstory, your relation to the characters, goals, wants, and needs, and stuff like that. But then when you get in the space, you know, it's all about trust, right? So I always have my actors trust me, and we have a relationship. It's very important that you, as a director, you have a relationship with your cast, so they trust you, that you know what you're doing and that you're going to deliver the story right. But also there's a trust in them to deliver and breathe life into these characters and make them more authentic. And I remember just specifically a lot of the abuse scenes were very hard on just the grasp of the actors. And I noticed a lot of times when it was over for a take, I would go and check on them and I asked them, are they okay? How they're feeling? And then they would, communicate to me they either need a moment or they're fine, we can go for another take. But it was very important to watch them to make sure they were okay and how their energy was, because you don't want to exhaust anybody and you want to pay attention to when someone has done enough and when they haven't done enough, because a lot of people will say things, but you have to watch body language and you have to just make sure someone's there and know when to stop and when to move on.
Right. Man, that's wonderful. Because I mean, there are a lot of directors and writers who seek to do things like that. But if you haven't done it before, I'm so happy you gave that answer, because there's a right process to everything. And especially I think when you're a new director and you're covering such a sensitive topic, it could be hard to have those conversations on set and say, here's where I really want you to be, but I don't know if you emotionally are there yet. So yeah, I agree. I think that's beautiful, making sure you are with them every step of the way. That's what a great director does. So, and you're killing it.
You.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Let's see what we got next. Okay. Because I've only seen your short film work, in my mind, you're like a short film master. And I'm not joking. I'm like, this dude can do anything. I mean, like from Invisible, which is like 2 minutes, all the way up to something that you have that's like 25 minutes, or like Breathe was like 18 or something like that. I was like, this dude knows how to put everything into this short film. And it's funny to me because when people like talk about features, like do a feature film, it's hard, but go ahead and try it out. But people will say that short films are even harder to make. So for all those short filmmakers out there, what are like a few keys that you have to making a bomb, impactful short film?
Well, first, let me thank you for that. I really appreciate your kind words on that. But, it's so funny because even though I've made these shorts, my vision is so much bigger. I have to kind of narrow down what I'm going to talk about on these topics, because I really feel like my gift is to do features and episodic, because I have such larger scale ideas that a lot of times I'm compacting a lot into a small time frame,
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this, one thing I did learn is that page count is very important to your short. And I know they say like a minute on a page is equals to a minute, but that doesn't always happen. A lot of times you can write a sentence that may be a couple of minutes, depending on the action or whatever you're filming. So you want to monitor the amount of pages for your goal. Say you want to do something that's probably between 10 and 12 minutes, right? You might want to just stick to a 7-8 page script. So therefore, those extra minutes are eating into your runtime. Or say if you want to do, a 30-minute piece, your page count can be 15,
Mm-hmm.
or to 20. So it just wants to kind of scale your page count back in order to get to a higher number, if that makes sense. Because if you match 20 with 20, that's probably not going to be a 20-minute film. It's probably going to be more of a 40-minute film,
Gotcha.
So it just depends in that spectrum. And also on the small scale, you want to make sure you get to the meat of your story quicker when you don't have that much time, not having unnecessary dialogue, making sure you can learn how to tell a story without dialogue. Is one thing that I learned how to tell is you don't always need dialogue. You don't need to make everything talky. You can get more through expressions and movements and energy in the mood of the room without even speaking. So yeah, so just think outside the box when you create shorts and be as creative as you can.
Very cool. Very cool. I think the non-dialogue thing is the one that I'm working on, because I will write some dialogue, man. So that's definitely my new challenge for sure. I want to say congratulations on Shank's Brain. I heard it's been winning some awards.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, our girl Ashley Johnson's in it, so I was like, I gotta watch this one first.
What'd you think about it?
I loved it. Listen, okay, I had no idea what was about to happen at all. And so when it had the little switch to the music, a few minutes in, I was like, oh, all right, okay, we vibing for real. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, that's in a few festivals coming up. So the next festivals I have is the Charlotte Black Film Festival, which Shank's Brain's in it, and also Man Down.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, everybody. You know what? We'll talk about at the end. You can tell us all the details of everything for sure, because I want people to go check out your work. I was gonna mention, okay, super duper quick story, right? I'm in the car with some family members and MJ's Thriller comes on the radio. And I was like, wait a second, isn't MJ like the man who basically made today's version of the music video? Because I was like, he got like Thriller and Bad and Smooth Criminal, la da da da, right? And I was like, yo, MJ changed the game. And so when I saw Shank's Rain, I was like, this has a good MJ vibe, because for most films are just very straightforward. And I did want to say that I love that you did that in Shank's Rain and in Running. Running threw me for a loop too. So very, very cool on your part.
Thank you so much. So yeah, like the way that came about is me and the artist, Kyron Shank, he wanted to do a short film narrative, you know, like its own entity for that song. And I was interested in doing a music video project too. So we kind of like met in the middle. I was like, you want your narrative? I want my music video. So let's just make a hybrid.
Yeah.
So, and you know, I've shown him Running before, and then we did some research on other similar projects just to match his vision that he wanted to go with. And that's how we came to. So, you know, anything that's performance, we just kept it in the therapy room, right? And then we let the story take its place in the rest of it narrative. So therefore, you know, we had a good balance in that. And I think it turned out really nice. And I'm so glad it's doing well and people really like it. And hopefully there's a sequel coming soon. So hopefully there's a part 2.
Yeah, I saw that to be continued. I'm looking forward to it, definitely. I have a question for you, because most of your work, all the way back to like A Dreamer's Ambition, I was like, man, this dude is really good at music. Where do you get your inspiration from for the music for your films? And do you have a musical background?
Yes, I have a musical background. I've been singing since the age of 4. So I've always been a musician. I can hear music. I can play music. I also have piano experience as well. So I have an ear for music just naturally. So I feel like music is something that you can feel, right? So it has to make sense to the narrative in that it brings the emotion or enhances the emotion that's also there, and heightens the film. You don't want to drown your music. You don't want to drown any of your pieces out with unnecessary music or too much music. Like wall-to-wall score can be like a music video. Mm-hmm. If you have a narrative, the performances should really be guiding it, and the music should just be there to, you know, take you on that journey to enhance it. So yeah, just my inspiration, just how it feels for the piece and what I feel, you know, in my spirit fits in the piece is what I would say.
I mean, you do a phenomenal job. And when I was watching, I guess, most of your works, I was thinking about the fact that in like the 90s or even before, big feature films used to have fantastic scores. Like we had Black people going out for like Waiting to Exhale to buy 1,000 copies of that CD or 8-track, whatever the heck it was back then. I think nowadays music is not as integral to the piece as it used to be. And for some reason that makes me so upset. And I think you're kind of bringing it back to where it's supposed to be. So I appreciate you for that. Do you have is there any specific sort of film that you want to do that covers a topic you haven't done before? Or is there any sort of film you want to do that it covers a musical style that you haven't done before?
Oh, I have 2 parts to this question.
Okay.
Thank you for that question. That's great.
Yeah.
I do want to do a musical type film, like about like kind of like something like a Dreamgirls.
Come
where
on.
There's like, you know, I'm very interested to do something where we can create an original soundtrack and we can create actually like a group or something in this film that's fictional that people can kind of vicariously live through, kind of how like we had like Empire, you know, where there's a soundtrack for these characters, you know, and we really enjoy the music and we can hear this music on the radio, you know. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something I definitely want to do. And then also another film that I have in the works, I don't know if I want it to be a feature or episodic. I want to do a film that's about the plight of being a Black man. I'm kind of like opposite of a For Color Girls movie. Just kind of like talking about our experiences and just our traumas and what it is to be a Black man in America, and just the different facets of different Black men, or different Black modes of what we are and how we are together, and just trying to find community and understanding amongst each other and in the world we live in.
Dude, oh, I love it too much. I really do. You have no idea. Okay, let me touch on both of those things you just said. First of all, I adore Dreamgirls. I just had a whole like soundtrack listened to in my car not too long ago. I am such a fan of musicals, and I did like my own little bit of research because I was trying to understand. I'm like, you know, Broadway is cool and all, but why is it that we see so many musicals of Black people based in like the 60s and before. I don't see current musicals. And I also, when I do see anything that's current, that's a play, it is always about Black plight. And it completely annoys me. It has its purpose and it's necessary. But I'm just kind of like, where are the good Black musicals again? Oh my gosh. So I'm gonna look forward to this one. I will. But do you see what I'm saying? There's definitely something lacking here.
Yeah, it's just, I think the content that exists today, I think a lot of people are just not creative today. They're looking for a guaranteed box office cash cow, if that makes sense. Like sequels and reboots are a necessary audience gain. Like they already know the brand exists. They know people are going to come out to it. So therefore they can trust that, but they don't take as many risks in today's time as it was when we were kids and before us, you know, where there were a lot more original ideas coming out. Today it's just kind of rehashments, remakes,
Yeah.
you know, and what have you. So there's a lack of originality today. I mean, of course, everything has been done on the sun sometime before, but even today, it's just people just don't take gambles and just risk, and they want to do what's safe. And that's where the lack of new material and originality comes from, I believe.
Mm. Well, we definitely need to work on changing that one.
Yes.
Man, you know what? I personally have not seen For Color Girls. One of the reasons is because I know that it has messed people up. Like it's deeply emotional. Even Whoopi talked about the fact that she couldn't shake the character for like 2 years. And I was like, all right, do I really want to watch this? But I do so much love this idea of bringing together Black men and talking about what Black men go through. Oh, that makes my heart so happy because as a Black woman, I'm here for, I stand for, I love Black men. And, you know, it made me think about your film Breathe. I legitimately got teary-eyed towards the end, and I had to like pause the video for a second because I was like, I didn't expect this. I didn't expect the ending, and I know it's basically your newest short film, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna need everybody to go out and go watch that because you did such a beautiful job of just showing this Black man who is just seeking to do the best that he can with what has just happened and happens again in his life. And then you allow him to choose to continue. And I was like, that's exactly what we need right now. That's what we need. So I really want to thank you for that. And what made you tell that story?
You know, thank you so much for that. I'm so happy to what it's doing right now. And now we're in our first festival with it, so I'm really, I'm really happy that I put that out. I wanted that out for around was it Mental Health Awareness Month, because I feel like it was important. So I've been planning that for a while, and that movie's been filmed for a while. I just was waiting for the right time to put it out. Um, but yeah, I remember during not undergrad, but during life in grad school, I was a part of this Black men's group on campus called Brothers of Consciousness, BOC. And I remember us talking about different topics to kind of like bring awareness to, or possibly, you know, raise money for, you know, along the calendar year. And we were asked, you know, about suicide. And they asked if you have ever had a thought of suicide, raise your hand. And it was about, I say there's about like 20 of us in the room. Everybody raised their hand. And I was like, wow, I didn't know these many people around me were having these thoughts, you know, as Black men on this, you know, on this campus. So it was important for me to tell a narrative that touched on Black men and mental trauma and suicide. So I wanted to make a narrative that was just showing you how life is and how life can just weigh you down. And one thing after another just keeps happening to the point that you want to break and you just want to give up. I didn't really want it to be easy for the character to get to that point. I want the character to really take, you know, kind of like a beating to get him to a point to give up. And at the last minute, hope comes in when, you know, and the rays of hope, so to speak. I want to say it's like God's light shining down on him and giving him hope is where I wanted the narrative to end. So it didn't end on a tragic note. It kind of would give people hope in their darkness, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a beautiful piece of work, truly. Wow. What I also wanted to say was, you know what? I honestly lost my thought. I'm pretty stuck on that. It's such a necessary work, and I think that I think Black men need to be seen more and more right now during this time. Um, I think there are a lot of spaces where Black male voices specifically are being shut out. And I'm like, we need all of our voices in this race to be raised. So there's no reason for anyone to be silenced right now. So I'm very grateful to hear that. And the work that I'm getting ready to do next is somewhat based around the mental health of Black men. So it's good to hear that I'm kind of on the right track here too, based on what you're doing. So that's
Yes,
pretty
yes.
cool.
Yeah, anybody who sheds light on mental health issues is great, because we're all going through it, and especially like, being in the pandemic, everything was heightened. Domestic violence was heightened. So I'm glad I already have Beauty Mark out there to help people do that. And then with Breathe, suicide and just mental instability was on the rise. Just people not knowing how to deal with their traumas because they're stuck in a house. They can't go anywhere. They can't do anything. They don't have anything to distract them. And now, people have been in such a rush to get back to the way things are. And have they learned the lesson while we were in quarantine of what is more valued, what you should really put your energy on, how you should focus yourself? Or are you just looking for the next distraction? And I think people should really take that into consideration. And so all these films, deal with things that we're still dealing with. So it's important to kind of have some self-revelations within yourself and figure out how you want to have internal peace.
I totally agree. Absolutely. And I also like the fact that when I see work like Breathe and even some of the works that are coming out now, it seems like we're allowing Black people to win. Which, like, even there are some Black filmmakers who've made works where we still lose at the end. And I'm like, okay, I'm thinking of one film specifically, which I'll talk to you about, but I like the shift that's happening now. And I really hope that even more work that's being created allows people to think, and not even just think, but allows people to change and to pursue to be better. And I know your work does that, and I hope that mine continues to do so as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Black work has always existed. It just has different phases in which we get notoriety, so to speak. I want to say before Black Panther, they didn't even think we could sell domestically. I mean, beyond domestically, internationally, overseas. That was something that was definitely a talking point. And when Black Panther was such a triumph for a mainstream movie with all Black people in it that we don't really have. We've always had Black movies, but they've just been for us domestically, right? So now that we can be commercialized, I think it's a trend where they're investing in us because we sell. So, everything is not because we've worked so hard to get it. Once people can figure out how to monopolize and monetize you and your Blackness, then you're now valuable, right? So then it's important for us to use that to our advantage. Like, even if people don't genuinely want to see us win or give us these opportunities, because it's trendy to make social justice films and talk about the Black experience and not be Black, or have somebody behind the table who is not Black who's making a profit off of you. Use that to your advantage to grow your brand, to get your voice out there, and to make sure these stories are still told authentically, even if that's all you add to the table, if that makes sense.
I absolutely agree, because let's be real, we go into and out of style, even though we affect everything. So it's such a strange catch-22. It really, really is. You know what? I've like said all that I wanted to say. Truly, I'm just honestly happy to sit here and chat with you. I guess what's next for you? You got any big plans coming up for films?
What I can say, I just wrapped a new movie last month. It's a horror film called Children of Night. And Children of Night is about a house sitter. Her name is Deja Clark, and she's a college student, and she's looking for some money for her next semester's tuition. So she stumbles upon this house sitting gig from this alluring, mysterious, illustrious power couple, the Sinclairs. And then, they look pretty young. And, she just says, hey, this shouldn't be too bad. It's just like a month gig. She can stay at the house, get some, easy money. But what she doesn't know is that they're secretly vampires, and they're looking to expand their family eternally. So, will she make it? Will she survive? Is this going to work out in the Sinclair's favor, or is she going to be able to stop them? So it's an interesting horror fantasy thriller that, I've never really tapped into a lot of fantasy yet. So I'm trying to explore my genres. I don't want to be put in a box. A lot of people, because of my horror feature, they just have me as a, you know, a horror person. And that's not, there's different multifacets to me beyond horror. Horror is my first love. That's how I started film, because I feel like horror movies are so fun to make and they're easier to make, you know, especially budget wise. But, you know, as I'm growing my brand, I want to expand it to not just do horror, to do drama, to do, you know, queer content, to do action movies, to do, you know, comedies, dramedies, you know, episodic, you know, different things where I can have a variety as a filmmaker and overall content creator, so I can build a bigger platform for myself and also pull my people up with me.
Very cool. Yeah, you know what? There aren't many Black people that go into horror. And I mean, you know, I can kind of understand why. But even after watching him running, I was like, man, this dude is into this. Let's see where the heck this goes. So yeah, Children of Night. I'm looking forward to it. I know that you had a bunch of cast interviews as well, right? On Superstar Productions YouTube page.
Yes.
So cool. I'm gonna go ahead and check those out. Yeah, very sweet. So where can people find you?
You guys can find me on all platforms at Superstar Productions. I'm pretty sure that information will be down here. So yeah, like just log in. I love connecting with people. I love talking to people as well. So send me a message, chat with me. You know, I love that. But mostly just, you know, really get into the work and just see the message that's being presented and the new perspectives that I'm trying to I'm trying to paint, you know, for our narratives, and just, you know, speaking for unrepresented voices, inclusion, diversity, and true change is really important to me, and it's integral into my brand, and using inclusion to spotlight unrepresented voices from different demographics, not just Black people, but anyone in general, is very important, that we see ourselves in ourselves. And that's just what I truly want to do as a creative and as a filmmaker and as a storyteller. So yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Jonathan, it's been so wonderful talking to you. I cannot wait to see more of what you have to come. And thank you for being here, man.
Likewise, thank you. And yes, we're in the film festival circuit right now. So Charlotte Black Film Festival is coming up next week during Juneteenth, and I have a screening of Breathe coming up. So yeah, so if you guys check us out and see what happens for the rest of the year.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.